Welcome, everybody. Today we have a very special guest.
I knew early on that I wanted to make movies.
It's such a difficult industry because there's a lot of luck involved.
I mean, look at American Werewolf in London, look at The Thing, look at The Fly. Look at these films that have really withstood the test of time.
I sculpted this Captain Kirk mask, and they didn't sell particularly well, but then John Carpenter came in, said, can you paint one white and spray paint his hair black?
I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and it scared the living shit out of me.
You're just racking up these people that you grew up watching. They're in your films. Is that surreal?
There were 35 directors there. If there had been a bomb dropped on that restaurant, never another good horror movie.
Benet's Bloody Bits.
Welcome to Triple B. My name is Jason Benet. Phones have come a long way over the years. Now with cell phones, we have our entire life in there, from emails to GPS to paying our bills. It's kind of incredible that this little gadget can have so much inside of it. But, you know, there was a time when phones were basically landlines inside your house, a pay phones out there in the real world. That was it. And there was no special ring in your home. When someone called, there wasn't a different chime for a family member or a loved one, or it could be a crazy person. You just did not know who was on the other end. And for perhaps the younger generation out there, it's crazy to think that. And also there were two kind of phones. There were, you know, ones that you could press the buttons, which was a little bit quicker. And then there was a rotary, which you put your finger in each number, and it took forever to get a phone call through. And that's scary because, you know, if you had to call 911, the police, you know, ambulance, it was tedious, and, you know, you're losing time, and that could be the difference between life or death. And that brings me to this movie, Murder by Phone, that came out in 1982. Now, it's a Canadian production, and the research I did, was shot around 1980. And most likely that's when Scanners was also made. Now, I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, but the movies are definitely tied together. Cronenberg's film Scanners came out in 81. We obviously know that, the incredible exploding head scene. And, you know, Murder by Phone kind of plays in the same sandbox. The story is Richard Chamberlain plays an educator, a teacher. A good friend of his daughter passed away really young, which is, you know, he's like, this can't be a heart attack. You know, she's a teenager. And at the beginning of the film, she's in a subway, a phone rings. Again, you don't know if it's for you, but there's that curiosity. And she walks over, picks it up. This power, electricity, something comes through the phone waves, kills her. You know, there's blood coming from different orifices of her face. And, you know, Richard Chamberlain's friend's like, hey, can you look into it? And, you know, science is his specialty. He's the perfect person to hit the ground running and go check it out. And he goes and looks into it, and he goes to the payphone in the subway, gets a tip that, you know, hey, you know, this was electricity. She was, you know, she didn't have a heart attack. And he's kind of, you know, a man of science, and, you know, this is not real. You know, then he goes to the phone department and starts digging, and realizing that the higher ups are worried about their bottom line. They know what's going on. This girl that dies is, you know, number one. There's a string of murders that happens via technological terror. You know, it's like a gumshoe detective story. And Richard Chamberlain, it really is the key to everything. He could have totally phoned it in, pardon the pun, but he doesn't. He takes it serious. He never once doesn't look like he's invested in the role. And that's a huge deal because, you know, he's known for like Shogun and the Thornbirds. So something like Murder by Phone, he could have totally just been like, oh, this is just a paycheck and I don't care. So he is the anchor of the story. His mentor and friend is played by John Houseman. Great. They have a good chemistry together. It's nice to see them working off each other. And unfortunately, John Houseman's character is really more siding with the phone companies, kind of buddies with the main boss, and he doesn't really come to help Richard Chamberlain. And so that's the key, is Richard Chamberlain. But the murders are great. They're similar. Perhaps they could have went with a more, one time, a head gets blown off or an ear flies off or something different. They are with, bloody eyes, nose, mouth, but they are powerful deaths. Somebody going flying out a window down to, hit the ground. And, generally it's a devastating, almost like hurricane, bam, electricity. Spoiler alert coming up. The killer is a disgruntled employee. I won't say which employee it is. This is a huge phone company. And I do like the inner workings of when Richard Chamberlain starts digging, because he knows this technology and this is his field. It makes it that much more interesting. And you could see, the technology of the time. This was 82 when the Murder by Phone was released. And I think it's fascinating for somebody like me who's been around and seen the jump and phone technology over the years, and look where we're at now. I do have a Richard Chamberlain story. I did go to a convention and to meet him, and he had a long line, which was great to see. This is probably a little over a decade ago. And I'm sure most people that were in his line were not going to talk about this particular film, but I was writing at the time for a website, Killer Film, which is where I started. I had a business card made, so that was in hand. And I shook his hand and said, nice to meet you. And, I'm a fan of Murder by Phone. And he's like, he's cordial. Oh, yes, with John Houseman. And I said, I'd love to interview you. And he's like, do you have a card? And I did. And I never heard back from him. That's kind of expected. With my experience with being a journalist, is if you don't get a phone number or email, or if they kind of push you off to their agents, it's probably not going to happen. So that's unfortunate. Chamberlain recently passed away, so it would have been great to get his story, but I tried. That's all you can do. That's the best advice I can give you about being a writer or going after interviews. Is the worst thing they could do is say no or not get back to you, and that's okay. But I got to share some time and space with him, which was awesome. And this was pre-COVID. So I thought it was very cool how at his table, he had antibacterial, soap for his hands. Basically, after each person, he lathered up, and I don't blame him. If you've ever been to a convention, not all, but a good number of people are unwashed masses, and he knew what he was doing. That's pretty hilarious. And so there's a nice little Richard Chamberlain moment. But yeah, I don't know if Murder by Phone was really influenced by David Cronenberg's Scanners. It could have been. Who knows? It's a really great film. And the director is Michael Anderson. Now, in the 70s, I collected comic books. That kind of was, 1977. I was really getting into them. And, on the back of a few of the comic books was a full-page ad for a Jaws-inspired film, because that movie had made so much money. So Dino De Laurentiis produced Orca the Killer Whale, and on the back of the comic book was that iconic artwork with Richard Harris. Is it Jaws? No, but it's still a fun film. Any movie as Bo Derek getting her leg bitten off by a killer whale is always going to be entertaining. He also did a couple science fiction films, Logan's Run and Millennium. And he also did another obscure film that is on Blu-ray via Vinegar Syndrome called Dominique, which is a really good, twisty kind of brain smashing, mystery thriller. I recommend it. The people at Vinegar Syndrome have to know who Michael Anderson is, having released Dominique. And I'm thinking Murder by Phone is on their radar. The logo that came out in front of the film when I watched it was Warner Brother, but that's 40 years ago. Who knows if Warner Brother still has the rights to it? But I'm really shocked that Murder by Phone has not been put out on Blu-ray yet. It has an alternate title, Bells. That cut runs longer. The U.S. cut is Murder by Phone, and it's shorter. So then Bells is got some additional meat to it. I would love anybody really. I'm not picky, but I could see Vinegar Syndrome. This is in their wheelhouse, having both cuts. The artwork for this film on both Bells and Murder by Phone has always been great. It captures, the time. And yeah, so where's the Blu-ray? There's still a lot of great films out there. I really love doing this series. So yeah, Murder by Phone, also known by Bells, Richard Chamberlain, John Houseman, directed by Michael Anderson. You can find it. YouTube has a couple different versions up there. I don't know if Tubi has it. I don't believe so. But it's something I recommend you checking out. It's entertaining. It's technological terror. It's early 80s. A lot of people consider 1982 to be the best geek year ever. But I can't name one person that ever will throw out the name Murder by Phone as part of those films, probably because they haven't seen it. It's a cable staple from the early 80s. And I don't think a DVD was ever put out. Laserdisc, maybe. It was probably put on VHS. But a Blu-ray, haven't seen one happen. So hopefully we get this crazy film. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon, and stay scared.